From St. Cloud, Florida, this is the Phoenix Rising Radio Network.
If they're paying you, you're going to earn it. Put these on. I'll meet you in the bathroom.
Welcome to the Doc Show, Coast to Coast.
Do this, that, and the other thing and make miracles happen.
You can only turn your underwear inside out once.
You don't want to know.
Ralph Balmer says it all.
Just popped out of a bird's butt.
Weeknights, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern.
Before you leave, there are things you have to do, and I think you understand what I'm talking about.
My dad may have struggled, but he didn't give up.
System's got to be moving and a grooving.
Give Doc a call.
407-498-3193. It's the Doc Show, where I refuse to poop around anybody.
That's amazing. I've always wanted to do that.
What do you get when you cross a highly outspoken individual with the power of radio?
They give you an elixir, and at 2 o'clock, all of a sudden...
Well, you still get the highly outspoken Doc.
It's got a sticky front and a loose back end.
And who doesn't like that?
Yeah.
But I am not going to poop myself.
Now arm yourself with a poop bomb and get ready to throw.
Often imitated, never quite duplicated.
That's why it's good to be me.
This is the Doc Show, Coast to Coast, with Doc Holliday.
Locally, you were talking about, Matthew, you were discussing, and you mentioned the word corruption. Mm-hmm. And then we had to go to break. Now, since, and in my opinion, and we had our own little debate on this off the air, where I said, knowing what I've been told, and knowing what I see, and knowing what I know is fake and what is not, I say Hillary Clinton's done. Both of you guys disagree with me, but you're not going to survive when there are 22 possible felonies that you can be indicted for, seven of which have already, all they got to do is roll her back in. 22, she can't, there are things that she can't deny. And a lot of it has to do with there's some money laundering that's been going on. The Clinton Foundation, she's being drug into that. She is being tied into this pedophile thing. And that's got something to do with Anthony Weiner. But it was Anthony Weiner that none of this would have happened without that computer that her top aide, who managed to make copies of it. So NYPD's got them and blah, 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 blah. They've got 22 potential felonies. Mm-hmm. And the FBI, as hard as Obama is trying, and as hard as the DOJ, what's her face? Loretta Lynch is trying, and they're actually trying to have him removed now. That's flat out corruption.
As much as I would like to agree with you that she is done, and I would be the first one to get up and cheer if that were the case, I disagree with you for a couple reasons. One, it's proved that, what the FBI brings up has affected her. She's a disfavorable candidate, but her supporters might not care about that. That might not be the issue that they care about. If you look, the DNC knew she was an unfavorable candidate, and if I may, Matthew, I think you'll agree with me, possibly here. She's an unfavorable candidate. I think that in 2008 she was running, and she was leading Obama in the primary. He dropped out, she dropped out. I think she was promised a Secretary of State job, and
Absolutely,
I think she was promised this nomination. I don't think whoever ran against her, I think the DNC had already promised her that nomination. And in the WikiLeaks email, something that is just fact, it's not even my opinion, is that the DNC, and they're allowed to do this, picked Donald Trump out of the Republican candidates, sent that, hey, we're picking Donald Trump to the media stations that were working with them, and pushed Donald Trump very hard in the primaries. Why? Because they had an unfavorable candidate and they wanted another unfavorable candidate. And I think that's a frustration that a lot of people share. But at this point, they pushed that candidate and then they turned on him once he won the primary, just like, I had already called they were going to do. I before WikiLeaks, I in the primary, I could see that the DNC was doing this, and then they turned on him. This is why I think that people are polarized enough, and it's already the lowest amount of undecided voters percentage-wise in many elections that we've had previously. We're very polarized on this issue. I think that's played enough of a role that no matter what comes out on either candidate, people have kind of made up their minds. And that's why I would refute you, Mr. Doc. Is
she would be, if she becomes president-elect, and there's still time, of course, and Trump's playing it pretty cool for him.
Yeah.
When there are potential, and I'm rolling it back here because I had them all listed, potential, and they don't need them all. You know, the idea is Hillary's 70 years old. Do you need to put her to jail for 30 years?
How many of these are actually punishable by prison? And
any felony is punishable.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when it's left up to the DOJ, and,
unless you're
they
rich.
see, well, also, I mean, if you are Hillary and you have her
buy her
influence,
way out of this.
I don't think she's going to prison.
I think that's exactly the problem, is that she can buy her way out of this.
I don't think
I believe,
the lawyers
I believe
will get her
it runs
through it. I
deep enough.
promise
If you look at how close ties Loretta Lynch has to Clinton, and again, this is where I think Matthew and I will agree. She's not going to prison because of how connected she is. She is the epitome of a corrupt Washington insider.
That doesn't hurt, yeah.
Okay, but
that's why
she
I don't
won't
understand.
she could not keep, under any circumstances, the job of president. And do liberals and the Democrats, who are now sitting on the cusp of possibly the first female, which I think is ridiculous because you had Barack Obama. Oh, we got the first, he's sort of black. We got the first sort of black guy.
Okay.
He's going to make history. And I got news for you.
Time out here.
Barack Obama did nothing in 8 years. Nothing but side up with he sided up with the terrorists. He rolled back the borders, let them walk on in here. He has done nothing for America.
Okay, hold up a second. Hold up a second.
You time out a second. You're not going to argue with me.
No. As the only female in the room.
Well, what's that got to do with Obama?
Well, Hillary's running on the fact that she's a female.
Because you just made the comment that, her being the first female president of the United States, as the only female in this room right now,
as far as
I'm going to tell you, it's an insult to women to assume that we are just going to vote for a candidate because we have the same genitalia. If you really want to be, if you really want to be empowered as a woman, you're going to use your brain. You're not going to use the fact that you have a common birth right with the woman.
And hatred amongst women against Hillary. Women actually hate Hillary more than the men that dislike her.
Yeah.
I've noticed that.
Why she tries as hard as she can to let's go girl, blah, blah, blah. She appeared on the video screen at the J-Lo concert. And, of course, Donald Trump's a pervert. He said he wanted to grab Putty and this, that, and the other thing. And to say, okay, they may hate Hillary, but Donald Trump, he's a perv and he doesn't respect women, so why not vote for the woman? That's what they're basing her whole campaign on.
I can answer to
Here's
that.
where it comes down to, though, is women. There are some women, like Hillary, that were just career-driven. The child just was part of the deal because she'd never make it in politics and this high up if she didn't have the happy family to go with the picture, so to speak. But for women, there are some women that are just career-driven, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, if that's what they choose to be. But there are women like myself that I have a career, I have a college education, but I don't mind being June Cleaver either. Mm-hmm. And when you get Hillary putting those of us down that believe in both aspects of it,
are you perceiving that she does? Because I don't perceive that.
I don't get the warm fuzzies from her.
Well, nobody gets the warm fuzzies out of her. I don't think Bill ever got the warm fuzzies out of her.
I just that's how it comes across to me. She's more because there are women that are not the bra burning feminists out there. There are more of us that are kind of in the middle, and I think that's the base that she's trying to resonate with. And she's not, because it's just like, she's just not doing a good job if she's
funny,
trying.
It's funny to me that you think that she doesn't value motherhood when that is actually a major complaint of Anglo culture and the West coming from Muslim cultures, is that motherhood is not actually mothers are kept in poverty. They can't stand that. Motherhood is not encouraged in our society. So unless, you can say people, they get tax money, but I've seen what single mothers are living on, and most of them hold jobs. It's not great.
Right.
So when you glamorize getting, divorcing a family, getting rid of family values, and saying after World War II, and again, this came with very noble, it was a very noble cause at the time to say, hey, we're going to take care of single women. But what came after World War II, because guess what? Their husbands went and died.
Right.
After that, it turned into almost a glamorization of the single woman.
Well, what's
saying,
wrong with
them
that?
Up. And it's fine, okay? But what it's turned into is that there's very little stigma against it, which I think, it should be at least a little stigmatized.
Yeah, I disagree with you there.
Only because
I disagree with that too, though.
Okay, but watch. What I'm saying is, the way it stands, and I agree 100% that we need to, help support these people, single mothers, and I think that's important. But what I'm saying is, there is a decline in family values, all right, because of that has caused you can divorce your husband and marry the government. That is allowed under the system.
It's difficult, but I'm sure it's possible. You can get enough money, but you have to have it's not glamorous. I've seen that.
I don't think most women don't strive for that. Is there a certain demographic that it's more prevalent in? Yes. Do we have a duty as Christians or as non-Christians, but just for me as a Christian, do we have a duty to be Christ-like and help those communities on a community service level to help educate them? And
yes, because it'll never be paid for completely by charity.
I will say this. Okay, the First Baptist and there's another church have pregnancy centers in Kissimmee, with the exception of abortions because they won't touch that. They provide more mammograms and more services than the Planned Parenthood across from the hospital does. As far as that's concerned,
I would worry about the quality of that, but I'm not going to call it into question. And you're right. People should have a choice between, if they want to go to their church, that's fine. But like you said, they don't offer.
Church, the community usually will use that. That's the outcome of the church.
Well, we have a free medical clinic here for the uninsured over at St. Thomas Aquinas. And doctors that are physicians in Osceola County donate their time every Wednesday at that clinic. And that's part of their faith walk, but it's not even a matter of, I just think there's a bigger picture. I think that, in my opinion, with welfare programs, with social services that are being provided by the federal government, okay, it should not be the solution. It should be the help to
Band-Aid.
Get out of the debacle that you're in or the situation that you're in. I don't like the word debacle.
All right, now let me mention one more thing here. Now, when I mention what where we have gone wrong, of course, is open borders, and I mentioned Islam and Islamic terror. And those are the things that the Democrats lean toward, the left leans toward it, and Obama has taken this country and pushed us to the point where we've got guys over in Iraq that are fighting against weapons that were made here in the United States and dropped to ISIS. Now, your background makes no difference to me whatsoever. His background makes no difference to me whatsoever. Her background. The minute I said that, the whole room tenses up. All right. Well, you know what? And I said, oh, okay. Well, I thought he was Mexican. That the point is, you're just a guy sitting here talking to me. And I'm telling you where this country has gone wrong and where Hillary will take it even further into the gutter because, okay, here we go. Hillary. Right now, they have enough to charge her with money laundering, child exploitation, sex crimes with minors, and that's accompanying bill on that plane to that little island. They've got her going. She is on the flight log. Perjury, 7 counts. Pay to play through the Clinton Foundation, which means bringing in and she had the Islamic leaders
selling influence. Basically.
Saudi Arabia, $25 million is what she got out of them, and but she supports women. Well, how do they treat women in Saudi Arabia?
Terribly.
Okay, it's awful. It's absolutely ungodly what they do to women, and I feel bad for Muslim women because...
Then don't buy Saudi oil because that's what pays for that.
Well, you don't know. Do you go up and do you ask the guy that's working in the gas station?
Actually,
what kind of oil is that? Or what kind of gas?
There are ways to know. Like I never bought Citgo oil.
I was just about to say that because that's the only place I buy my gasoline is because I know that that's actually going to the citizens of Venezuela.
Okay.
You mean the leader of Venezuela?
Well, I mean, anybody that, that he passed away, but I used to say that anybody that Pat Robertson wants dead can't be all that bad.
And Venezuela is a socialist country
to a great degree.
That is in collapse.
But let's think of it. I would refute that by saying that the poor people of Venezuela actually are doing better.
Who are made poor by the socialist regime.
It's just not true. The Venezuelans are enjoying a higher standard of living. They still have had a lot of inept government, and that's a real problem. But again, that comes down to actually having the people have control over their government rather than corporations.
You get your gas at Citgo.
I try to, yes.
And that's a 7-Eleven, correct?
Yeah. No, well,
some of them are. So, yeah, Citgo usually runs the gas, and then they like to contract out whoever runs the store. It's usually 7-Eleven.
7-Eleven used to be all Citgo, and what happened was there was enough stigma brought up against it because it was going to the leader of Venezuela that people started boycotting them. And they went off of, to an extent, yes. There was a movement saying if it says Citgo on it, we're not going to get gas there. It's hypocritical, because your gas is still going somewhere else. But honestly, that's the EPA's fault. I mean, we have the ability.
She was talking about women's mistreatment in the Middle East, and my answer to that is the oil question, because the Saudi government has been backed by our federal government for about 100 years now with oil. Exactly.
Well, and I
so
agree
more
with you
economics.
There.
Again, it comes down to money. Who has the money? And I don't like that the Saudi government, we allow them to influence us as much as they own a good portion of Fox News.
I would take a different approach to solving that same issue that we both agree is an issue. And that would be, why does the EPA, and let's say, we're worried that we're going to hurt our environment a little bit. Well, an oil drill, fracking plant, does about the same environmental impact as a golf course at the point with technology it is here. If we were to drill for oil to a much larger extent, we would do it better. I think you would agree. We would do a better job drilling for oil and be safer on the world environment than the Saudis would. There's no EPA breathing down their necks and saying they can't spill oil all over the sand. So as a whole, and then it gets on some cheap rusty tanker from the 40s and ships across the ocean that is not environmentally better. And yet the EPA has the gall to say, I'm not going to let you drill for oil here because it's going to make an environmental impact.
Those are bad standards encouraged by,
encouraged by us buying it, but our hand is forced because, I think
it's forced because we choose to continue to our addiction. We have an addiction to oil in this country, and it's been going on for more than 100 years now.
We can self-sustain from our own country.
Yeah, I don't want to self-sustain. I want to get off of it. We need to start moving to alternatives.
And the thing is that where do you find the alternatives?
Well, and the alternatives
my answer to that is multiple ways. Yeah. You'll never get a complete replacement.
They're more expensive right now, and that's what's driving the consumer away from it. People don't want a hybrid car. They don't want the electric car because they're just more expensive.
And there's a reason for that. The United States government is still subsidizing the oil industry, the most profitable industry in this world, to the tune of $50 billion a year. Meanwhile, solar and water, and especially hydro, and whatever you generate it from the currents underneath the ocean, it's not receiving government support. And new technology is never embraced by the business community until it is actually made sustainable. And like you said, cheaper. Moon transport has not been made cheaper. It's more expensive than it ever was because we didn't actually go through and allow the government to make it easier for us.
I think one thing that I have
then that as oil as it stands right now, do you agree that it's would be better? Forget alternative energy because that will come. Mm-hmm. But would you agree that it would be better for the EPA to lax restrictions, keep restrictions on how well they have to do it, but lax them on if you can or can't drill here. Because if we were able to get more of our own oil, I think it could create a marketplace for it, for American oil, and it could drive these
my number one
irresponsible, oil spilling everywhere. Don't give a rat's ass about the environment. People drilling for oil over there. I think it's and it's a side tangent, I know, but it's the most irresponsible disregard for the environment by an organization called the Environmental Protection Agency, because they could regulate and they could make sure, and we would have the best technology drilling for that oil.
You assume so, but
anywhere.
again, if we allow corporations to be the people that drill the oil and figure out how much it costs, they'll continue to drive costs down, and safety will never go up.
They're still going to do a better job here than they will overseas.
I don't know that because, I'm sure that...
because the EPA will still exist and it'll have regulations. Right now, there are people in horrible conditions.
You want to downsize the EPA. I want to, grow it so that they can actually get more into studying how things are affecting our environment.
The EPA is responsible for their restrictions, are responsible for us buying oil elsewhere, because the EPA doesn't have jurisdiction over that oil rig in Saudi Arabia. They have jurisdiction over the one here. And right now, it's not a problem. That's not profitable for us, because we're going ahead and buying these totally out of code, totally ridiculously harmful for the environment, oil from these oil things that just spill it all over the sand and then ship it on a rusty old boat leaking oil all the way across the Atlantic. And
that's because corporations are international and governments are not. Governments, we as Americans are not allowed to have a say in where our oil is coming from.
That's a good thing, but what we should have a say of we can get our oil here. And the thing is, our restrictions, I believe, have gotten totally out of hand, where it ties the hands of any responsible American who wants to go after and get that oil. It's not from their backyard per se, but if they buy a piece of land that has it, they can't get after that oil because the EPA tells them they can't, and yet they're driving their cars.
I'll bet you any amount of money that if you find oil in this country, that we'll either reserve it or we will sell it to a corporation. One of the two.
Now here's the deal, and because we have to break and we're done, is that yes, there's enough oil in Mexico to us never to ever have to look into the Middle East.
Enough in North Dakota.
What's the what, in my opinion, and I didn't get to say this at any point, but my number one concern in this is what is the environmental impact of us drilling that oil? What is the environmental impact of us burning that oil?
Have you seen Mexico?
It's a
hellhole to begin with. It could only improve that country's economy.
No, smog is a pretty big deal. Whenever
So let me see. Carbon dioxide, if you have a catalytic converter on a car, I'm just going to say, is not something that drives the environment to be worse. Smog, air. Okay, so particle pollution is a thing of the past. It's cleared up. Why? Because we have better technology. And you agree with this. Technology has improved to the point that the byproducts of a car running down the road, if it's not leaking oil, if it's not in disrepair, are what? Carbon dioxide and hydrogen. Okay? Take carbon dioxide. How is that getting up to the atmosphere and causing issue? Carbon dioxide gets eaten up by the grass right on the side of the road.
You're assuming that everybody has a newer car that has a standard. I drive a truck from 1998.
1998 has a catalytic converter.
Okay, well, I did not know.
Actually, the catalytic converters have been around
since the 40s,
since the 70s.
Well, it was really good that we did that because, like you said, the smog. We no longer reach dangerous levels like they do in China or other countries that are industrializing.
Well, China's like, you can't even see.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's because they're industrializing. But see, that's what I'm hazy because you seem to want to roll back restrictions, but you keep saying that those restrictions they're there, and then should China not have restrictions? Would that not lessen their problem?
Okay, so you had the smog problem, right? And that is solved. All right, catalytic converters in the cars, very simple, very practical, not very hard to do. And now you have
to fix.
To fix, yeah. I had a car that didn't have one, so I was contributing to particle pollution.
The only way you got a car that didn't have one is if you took it off.
I took it off. I had a sports car at one point.
Because I worked at a gas station when I was 16.
Smog producer, you.
And we were supposed to take the license plate.
Me not caring.
I thought your carbon footprint looked really big when I was walking by you.
We do have to go. I still will say, and we can get into this sometime in the future. And
absolutely,
as long as you don't get offended. When I speak of Islam, that I think is a problem in this country, and you're more than welcome to refute it. I didn't think twice about it. Everybody in here just clinched. You didn't. You were the only one. Mm-hmm. He was the only one. The guy who may or may not even be Muslim or Islamic, or maybe he's this or he's that. I don't know.
I'm an atheist.
There you go. Well, you're really going to hell.
I've been hearing that my whole life. If my mother's listening, she never wants to hear me say it. But
oh boy,
yeah.
Also, Hillary, by the way, not only the pay to play, which wasn't just the Saudis, okay. She says that 10%, they only draw 10% off, stealing from her own charity, stealing from any charity in the United States of America. That's why they're trying to nail Trump with it. They can't find anything. Is that they did, they ran a tax audit on the Clinton Foundation and found that only 10% of the Clinton Foundation goes to charity.
It doesn't surprise me at all.
And so she's going down for that. Obstruction of justice, 15 charges of obstruction of justice.
I'll put it to you this way. You and I would probably disagree on how those charges... I will go home and study a little bit, but I'll tell you right now that no matter where that goes, is let's say if she was sentenced to it or not, in the end, it does come down to policy with me. Donald Trump wants to lessen the income tax. I want to raise it. And Hillary Clinton would say that the highest earners should pay more. I believe she would say that.
She said 250,000 should pay almost 40%.
Over 250,000.
Over to 250.
Yeah. So the dollar after
Don't they
that
pay
250K.
close to that now?
No, they're somewhere in the low 30s, mid 30s, I think.
That's an awful lot of income tax to begin with.
Well, let me tell you this though. In 1957, when Dwight was president, he balanced the federal budget by charging everything over 250,000 was at 94%.
That's insane.
I'll grant you that's insane.
I don't think anyone would want to.
And I agree with you, but that kept
point.
money in the company, and it grew the company. People are drawing out too much in personal income and not keeping it in their companies.
All right, so we got to go. I appreciate you guys coming in. I still have questions that I didn't get to, and I'd love to down the future if you guys are available next
after the election's over. Sure,
because we don't know how all that's going to turn out.
Yeah,
we could have riots in the street if Trump beats Hillary. Watch the same trouble from Black Lives Matter start. You're going to see problems either way, and if Hillary wins, this whole country is going to grind to a halt with everything.
I don't think she has that much
she's been accused
as president. I would refute you there.
She's just a corporatist. There's really no other way about it.
Then how did Obama? How did Obama have so much? How did he get all that money over to Iran?
He did a lot over a long time, but you said grind to a halt.
We will grind to a halt because we will not have a functional president of the United States. She's going to have to step aside.
I am more even though that's a bad scenario, I will say I'm more optimistic. I believe more in this country and its principles, fading as they are. Than to say something like that. If it happens, it'd be a darn shame. It'd be very sad. But I'm going to have to disagree with you because I'm a little bit more optimistic than you on that area.
If they go for the perjury first and they take her back in front of Congress, which is what Congress wants. Congress wants her in front and to re-answer the questions. And if she, at that point in time, goes, I don't recall, to a question that she already answered and lied to Congress about, then she's in a lot of trouble. She won't be allowed to swear.
Enough people don't care.
She won't be allowed to swear. Enough people care in the government, and enough people are sick and tired of the corruption. And I think,
that's amazing that you brought that. That's where I'm at. The corruption. The government should be answerable to people, not money.
And on top of that, as a Democrat, you should look back on what was once a great party. That had the John F. Kennedys and the Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
You just named my top guy right there.
and I'm a huge Kennedy guy.
A four-term president. Let's go ahead and say that out loud.
You know what? But he brought us out of depression and then guided us through the war.
He saw Hitler as the threat he was way before this country did.
And but you know what? He couldn't do anything about it, and he just stayed isolationist. We got to go.
Exactly.
Thank you guys for coming in. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
And it's Friday.
I got paid today.
Oh, did you?
Look at you.
Anybody got any liquor in their car? If you do, I'm not going to tell the cops. Just bring it in here. We'll make sure it's gone before you leave.
In St. Cloud, it's within a mile of here.
It is the Doc Show, and we got to go. It gets a little heated in here sometimes, but that's all right. Enjoy yourselves, and we'll have a lot to talk about. Election day, man, it's ticking away, and it's coming. And what's going to happen, and what should happen, and what shouldn't.